Imagine this. You work at a factory, live on pasta, and wear secondhand clothes. At the same time, every month you give away your salary to pay the mortgage on her luxury three-room apartment. And then, after 10 years of such a life, you get a call and hear, "Dad, don't come to your granddaughter's birthday. You ruin the atmosphere." What would you do? Here's what I did. The phone rang just as I was reheating yesterday's soup in the microwave. The workday at the factory had been tough. An accident on the main line, and I had to stay late into the evening coordinating repairs and writing a report for management. I came home exhausted, hungry, dreaming only of a hot dinner and the television. On the screen appeared my daughter's name, Carmen. My heart skipped with joy. She called so rarely these days that every call from her was like a celebration. "Hi, Dad." Her voice sounded tense, as if she was forcing herself to be polite. "Carmencita, sunshine, how are you? How's work? How's Isabella?" I immediately bombarded her with questions, happy for the chance to talk to my daughter. Isabella, my 5-year-old granddaughter, the light of my life. A curly-haired, dark-eyed little girl with huge brown eyes and an infectious laugh. Wise beyond her years, always asking questions that left adults struggling for answers. "Listen, Dad." Carmen went silent, and I immediately knew something unpleasant was coming. In her 28 years of life, I had learned to recognize those tones. "Isabella's birthday is next week. She's turning 5. "Of course I know," I said joyfully. "I already bought her a present. Remember how she wanted that big construction set with the princess castle? I found the exact one online. Expensive, of course, but nothing is too much for my granddaughter." A silence followed. Long, unpleasant, the kind that makes your heart ache. "Dad, we decided to celebrate her birthday in a close family circle. Just the three of us. Me, Rodrigo, and Isabella. You understand?" No, I didn't understand. Or rather, I was starting to understand, but refused to believe it. "What do you mean, close circle?" I asked, hoping I had misheard. "I'm Isabella's grandfather. Isn't a grandfather part of the family?" "Dad, you know." Carmen's voice carried that familiar note of irritation I remembered from her teenage years. "You're always so tense at celebrations. You ruin the atmosphere with your remarks. Rodrigo asked me to tell you it's nothing personal. We just want the party to be calm and cheerful." Rodrigo, her husband for 4 years now, yet still a stranger to me. Tall, fit, with a fashionable beard and an expensive watch. A mid-level manager at some IT company. Always polite, always smiling, but behind that smile, cold emptiness. From the first day, I felt he looked at me like a relic of the past, an old man getting in the way of their modern, beautiful life. "Carmen," I tried to find words, but they vanished. "This is my granddaughter's birthday. She's turning 5. That's important. Doesn't she ever ask why her grandfather doesn't come to her birthdays?" "She doesn't ask," my daughter answered sharply. "Children forget and adapt quickly. And anyway, Dad, you need to understand. I have my own family now. We decide ourselves who to invite to family celebrations and who not to." Something broke inside me. Not with pain, not with a snap. Just a quiet click, like a light switch being turned off, and my soul went dark. "I see," I said as calmly as I could. "All right, Carmen. Tell Isabella her grandpa sends his love. Tell her he loves her very much." "Thank you for understanding, Dad. I knew you'd get it." "Well, I've got to go. Rodrigo's making dinner." Short beeps. She had already hung up. I stood in the middle of the kitchen with the phone in my hand until the screen went black. Outside, November twilight was falling, and my reflection in the dark glass looked like a ghost. A gray-haired, weary 58-year-old man whose own daughter considered him unnecessary at his granddaughter's birthday. The soup in the microwave had long gone cold, but I no longer felt like eating. That night sleep wouldn't come. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, with the events of recent years replaying in my head like an old film. When did everything change? When did my beloved little girl, who used to run toward me shouting, "Daddy," turn into a stranger for whom I had become a burden? Carmen was born when I was 23. At the time, I worked as a mechanic at the factory and studied part-time at a technical college. Elena, my wife, was 2 years younger than me. We rented a room in a communal apartment, lived mostly on pasta with sausages, but we were madly happy. When the doctor placed that tiny bundle in a pink blanket into my arms, I understood what true love was. Not the romantic affection I had felt for Elena, but something much deeper, instinctive. I was ready to die for that little human being. I remember sleepless nights carrying little Carmencita around the room, trying to soothe her colic. I remember her first smile, her first words, her first steps. I remember how she stretched her little hands toward me and babbled, "Papa, Papa." I was the one who took her to kindergarten. Elena always had more important things to do. I was the one who went to the morning performances, dressed in a homemade Santa Claus costume stitched by our neighbor, Aunt Clara. I remember how Carmen proudly pointed me out to other children. "That's my dad." Her school years also passed under my wing. Parent meetings, help with homework, trips to theaters and museums. By then, Elena had already begun to cool toward family life. She was more interested in her friends, shopping, and TV shows. "Vicente, you're too protective of the child," she would say. "Give her freedom. Don't be such a strict father." But I wasn't strict, just responsible. Carmen grew up smart but strong-willed. In her teenage years, the rebellions began. She would scream that I didn't understand her, that other fathers weren't such bores, that I was suffocating her life. "Why can't I come home at 11?" she demanded at 14. "Catalina's dad lets her stay out until 12. "Because you're still too young," I answered, "and because I'm responsible for you." "You're suffocating me," she cried. "Mom, tell him." But her mother would just shrug. "Sort it out yourselves." And then her mother left. It happened when Carmen was 16. Elena packed her bags and announced she was leaving for another man. "Vicente, you're a good person," she said on the day of the divorce. "Reliable, responsible, but you're boring. You're all about work and family, and I still want to live for myself. Ignacio understands my needs." Ignacio, a grocery store manager 5 years younger than me, with a red car and a gold chain around his neck. He promised Elena a glamorous life, restaurants, resorts, entertainment. I didn't try to stop her. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I should have fought, proved I could give her no less. But my pride didn't let me. I simply said, "As you wish, just leave our daughter with me." For 2 weeks, Carmen went back and forth between us. She cried, blamed first me, then her mother for destroying the family, and then she chose me. Not out of love, as I thought at the time, but simply because she didn't want to change schools and lose her friends. So it was just the two of us in the 3-room apartment we had bought on credit a year before the divorce. 15 years left on the mortgage, and our household income cut in half. By then I had become a process engineer, but my salary was still modest. I had to take on a second job. In the evenings, I worked as a consultant for small businesses on technical issues. I worked like a madman, but I never deprived Carmen of anything. Good clothes, tutors to prepare her for university, pocket money for outings with friends. I saved on myself, but my daughter had to live no worse than her peers. I remember the graduation evening. I was sitting in the assembly hall among other parents, crying as I looked at my beautiful, grown-up daughter in her white dress. She received a gold medal and was admitted tuition-free to the economics faculty of a prestigious university. "Daddy, thank you for everything," she said then, hugging me. "I'll be the best student, I promise." And she kept her word. She studied with top marks, participated in conferences, received an increased scholarship. She lived in the dormitory but came home every weekend. We went to the movies together, cooked dinner, talked about her studies and her plans for the future. Those were good years. Carmen was grateful, affectionate, shared everything with me. She told me about her friends, her professors, her first romances. I was immensely proud. My daughter, whom I raised alone, was growing into a smart, determined, beautiful young woman. "Dad, I have a boyfriend," she said in her 4th year. "His name is Rodrigo. I want you to meet him." That's how a son-in-law appeared in our lives. My first impression of Rodrigo was ambiguous. A tall, fit young man with a fashionable haircut and expensive clothes. A firm handshake, a bright white smile, the right words. "Don Vicente, very pleased to meet you. Carmen has told me so much about you. It's clear you're a wonderful father." He brought good wine, a bouquet of flowers, asked about my work, complimented the apartment, but something about him put me on guard from the very first meeting. Maybe it was the way he appraisingly looked around our place. The old wallpaper, the worn furniture, my grandmother's china set. His gaze was polite, but I caught a faint note of superiority in it. Or maybe it was the patronizing way he patted me on the shoulder saying, "Don Vicente, you did a great job raising Carmen. That's thanks to your proper approach to parenting." Raised her, as if bringing up my daughter was some personal achievement rather than the natural duty of a father. "Dad, don't you think you're being too suspicious of him?" Carmen asked after that meeting. "I'm just getting to know him, keeping an eye out," I answered cautiously. "I have that right, don't I?" "Of course you do, but you shouldn't look for trouble where there is none. Rodrigo's a good man. He has plans, ambitions. He already works at a large IT company, earns a good salary. We're serious." Salary, plans, ambitions. Those words cropped up more and more in our conversations. Carmen told me about where she and Rodrigo vacationed, expensive resorts, what restaurants they went to, with foreign names, what they bought, brand name things. I was happy for her. My daughter deserved a beautiful life, but inside I felt uneasy. Could she really keep up such a lifestyle on her scholarship and part-time job? "Sweetheart, don't you think you're living too extravagantly?" I hinted once. "Dad, don't be silly!" Carmen brushed me off. "Rodrigo earns good money. He can afford to spend on his girlfriend. And I'll graduate soon and start earning well, too. We'll be fine." After university, she really did get a job as an analyst in a bank. The salary was decent for a beginner, but still nowhere near enough for the lifestyle they were leading. "Carmencita, how are things with money?" I sometimes asked. "Fine, Dad. Rodrigo helps. He makes more than me." "And are you saving for the future?" "Of course. We're planning to get married in a year or two, then buy an apartment." They got married 6 months after her graduation. I gave away all my savings, $5,000, for the banquet and my daughter's dress. A modest wedding for about 40 people, but beautiful. Rodrigo's parents clearly spent more. Manuel, the groom's father, turned out to be a successful contractor. A private house outside the city, 2 family cars, a summer home in an elite settlement. "Vicente, are you still working at the factory?" he asked me at the banquet, squinting slightly. "As an engineer?" "Well, yes, it's hard for technical specialists these days. Low salaries, huge responsibility. But our Rodriguito is already almost at a management position. A promising young man, he'll go far." I nodded and smiled. What else could I do? After the wedding, the newlyweds rented an apartment in a new neighborhood. An expensive 2-bedroom with European-style renovation and new furniture. Rent was $500 a month. "Dad, don't you want to see where we live?" Carmen invited me a month after the wedding. I came and was stunned. The apartment looked like something out of a designer magazine. Expensive furniture, modern appliances, stylish accessories. "Beautiful," I admitted, "but expensive, I suppose." "Don't worry, we'll manage." Rodrigo waved it off. "We have everything planned. I'll get a promotion soon. My salary will go up. And Carmen is gaining experience. She'll climb the career ladder, too." But 6 months later, Carmen called and asked to borrow money. "We're a little short," she explained in a guilty voice. "We can't make it till payday. Rodrigo's expecting a bonus. We'll definitely pay you back next month." I gave them $500 the next month. They didn't return it, but asked for another $200, then $300 more, then more again. Within a year, my loans had piled up to almost $3,000. "Carmen, maybe you should reconsider your expenses," I delicately suggested. "Rent a cheaper place, spend less on entertainment." "Dad, we can't live in some basement," my daughter protested. "We're not bums. We have status, a reputation. Rodrigo holds a managerial position. He can't afford to live in a shabby apartment." Status, reputation. New words in my daughter's vocabulary. And then they announced they wanted to buy their own home. "Dad, we have news," Carmen told me happily when they came to visit on my birthday. Isabella was just 6 months old then, sleeping peacefully in her stroller, smacking her lips from time to time. "What news?" "We decided to buy an apartment." Rodrigo beamed with happiness. "We're tired of throwing money away on rent. Better to take a mortgage and pay for our own place. That's the right decision, I agreed. Your own apartment means stability, especially now that you have a child. Only there's a small problem. Rodrigo coughed and looked at his wife with a meaningful glance. We don't quite have enough for the down payment. The bank requires 20% of the price, and that's quite a large sum. How much exactly? Well, Carmen hesitated. About $8,000. I nearly choked on my tea. 8,000. That was utterly unrealistic money for me. My entire yearly salary after taxes was about $5,000. That's expensive, I admitted. Maybe you should consider a cheaper apartment? Dad, we can't just buy the first cheap place we find, Carmen protested. We have a child growing up. Isabella needs proper conditions, a big children's room, a good neighborhood, developed infrastructure, clean environment. They showed me printouts with photos, a 3-bedroom apartment in a new business class residential complex, 90 square meters, panoramic windows, designer renovation, built-in kitchen, a gated community with security, underground parking, children's and sports playgrounds in the courtyard. Price, $40,000. Beautiful, I agreed, looking at the photos, but very expensive. Are you sure you can handle such a mortgage? We've calculated it, Rodrigo chimed in. The monthly payment comes out to about $700. Of course, that's a lot, but we'll manage. Our incomes are growing. $700 a month, more than my salary, and they plan to manage that for 20 years. And what if something happens? Illness? Job loss? Nothing will happen, my son-in-law declared confidently. We're young, healthy, in-demand professionals, and we have insurance for that. At that, Carmen coughed and gave her husband that same strange look again. Dad, we wanted to discuss something with you, she began uncertainly. You understand, $700 a month is a lot. Half of our income would go toward the mortgage. Yes, it's a lot. So we thought, what if you help us a little? Not the whole amount, of course. We're not freeloaders. But at least partially. Let's say $200 a month. We'll cover the rest ourselves. $200 a month, a third of my salary. Carmencita, I understand you want to live nicely, I began carefully, but $200 is very serious money for me. Dad, she jumped off the sofa, her eyes flashing with indignation. Are you really begrudging money for your own daughter and granddaughter? For your own flesh and blood? Of course I'm not. But understand, I work in a factory, not an office. My future pension will be very small. I need to think about old age, too. About saving. What old age? Rodrigo snorted. Don Vicente, you're not even that old. You'll work at least 10 more years. Engineers are valuable. You'll always find use for your knowledge. And in the meantime, we'll get firmly on our feet and start helping you. I looked at little Isabella sleeping in her stroller. Tiny, defenseless, with fluffy dark hair. My granddaughter, who deserved to grow up in good conditions. All right, I gave in. We'll try. But this is temporary until you finally get on your feet. Of course temporary, Carmen rejoiced. Thank you, Daddy. You're the best. That's how my 10 years of financial slavery began. From the first of the next month, I started transferring $200 to their mortgage account. At first, I went to the bank, then we set up auto pay, more convenient for everyone. $200 every month, $2,400 a year. In 10 years, that came to $24,000. More than half the cost of their apartment paid from my pocket. I had to seriously reconsider my lifestyle. My salary plus side jobs, $200 for their mortgage was a third of my main income. No luxuries, strict economy, and everything else. I bought clothes at sales and secondhand stores. Drove an old car I fixed myself in a friend's garage. Forgot about vacations, theaters, restaurants. Ate mostly cheap food, porridge, pasta, sausages, canned goods. But they had a beautiful apartment with expensive renovations and a park view. At first, they really did thank me. Carmen called every week, told me how they were settling in, how Isabella was getting used to her spacious children's room. They invited me over, proudly showed me every corner of the apartment. Look, Dad, what a kitchen we have. Carmen admired, showing off the built-in furniture and appliances. And here's Isabella's room. See how much space? She'll be able to play and study here as she grows. Don Vicente, come into the living room, Rodrigo invited. Would you like some coffee? We have a new coffee machine, makes amazing cappuccino. I went to them every weekend, played with Isabella, read her stories, helped Carmen with housework. I felt needed, useful. My granddaughter was growing before my eyes, delighting me every day with new words and discoveries. Grandpa, why is the sky blue? She asked, sitting on my lap. Because the sunlight reflects in tiny drops of water hanging in the air, I explained. And why don't the drops fall? They're very light, so they float. And if I'm light, will I float too? Of course, in dreams people often fly. Isabella giggled and asked me to tell her something else interesting. Thank you, Dad, Carmen said, hugging me goodbye. For everything, for your help, for your support. We really appreciate it. Oh, don't mention it, Sunshine. Family must help family. But time went by, and the gratitude gradually evaporated. What was at first seen as a great help began to be taken for granted. My weekly visits turned from joyful events into routine, and then into a burden. Dad, could you warn us in advance when you plan to come over? Carmen said about 3 years later. Otherwise, we might be busy, and it would be awkward. Of course, daughter, I'll call ahead. And also, could you wipe your shoes at the entrance? We have light laminate, every mark shows. Of course, sorry. I began calling before visits, but more and more often, they were busy. Guests, plans, or simply not a good time. Dad, maybe next weekend instead? Rodrigo's project at work is on fire. He's all stressed out. He wants to spend the weekend quietly, just family. And what am I, not family? Well, Dad, you understand. My husband works hard. He needs rest. Why break the family idol? The family idol, disturbed by Grandpa. And then came the remarks about my behavior. Don Vicente, could you please speak more quietly? Rodrigo said to me. Isabella just fell asleep after her walk and loud noises could wake her up. Dad, why are you giving Isabella so many sweets? Carmen hissed when I bought my granddaughter chocolate or ice cream. We have a diet regimen. Sugar makes her hyperactive. And where did these toys come from? Rodrigo asked disapprovingly, having discovered yet another doll or car I had given Isabella. We agreed. Only educational toys made from eco-friendly materials. Every word I said, every gesture, every gift was judged and corrected. I began to feel like an unwelcome guest in the house, for which I was essentially paying a third of the cost. But I endured, for Isabella's sake. My granddaughter grew quickly and delighted me at every meeting. At 3 years old, she had turned into a real beauty. Curly dark hair down to her shoulders, huge brown eyes shining with lively intelligence, and a contagious laugh. Isabella was an unusually advanced child for her age. She learned to read and count early and asked such questions that adults often struggled to find answers. Grandpa, why do people cry when they're sad? She asked once, sitting next to me on the sofa. It's a way to show their feelings, I explained. When your heart feels heavy, tears help ease the pain. Do you ever feel sad too? Yes, Sunshine. When? When we don't see each other for a long time. I won't forget you, even if we don't see each other. Children say things that make your heart ache with tenderness. When I was allowed to stay longer, I would read her bedtime stories. Isabella would climb onto my lap, settle in comfortably, and listen with wide open eyes. Grandpa, why did Cinderella love the prince? She didn't even know him. Maybe she felt that he was a kind and good person. But how can you feel that? People don't have it written on their foreheads whether they're good or bad. Kind people have kind eyes and they do kind things. Are you kind? I try to be kind. Then I love you. Those moments were the happiest of my life. But Isabella noticed things that adults tried to hide. Children have very sharp intuition. Grandpa, why do Mom and Dad whisper when you come over? She asked once while we were playing in her room. Adults sometimes discuss their own matters, I answered carefully. Do they talk about you too? Maybe. What do they say? I don't know, Isabella. Adults talk about all sorts of things. But one day she said something that pierced me like a knife. Grandpa, Daddy says you're a strange grandfather, but I think you're normal. My heart skipped a beat. When did he say that? When he thought I was asleep. He told Mom he was tired of your visits, and Mom said they had to put up with it. Put up with it. So my visits were a trial for them, something to be endured. Isabella, sometimes adults say things they don't really mean, I tried to explain. When people are tired, they can say something not very nice. Are you angry at them? No, sunshine. I understand. But inside I was boiling with hurt and pain. From then on, I started noticing more details. How Rodrigo rolled his eyes when I said something. How Carmen hurried to end my visit, citing chores or fatigue. How they exchanged meaningful glances, thinking I didn't notice. I started coming less often. I would call ahead, ask permission to visit, and more often I heard in response, Dad, we really don't have time this week. Too many things piled up. And next weekend, we'll see. Maybe. I'll call you. She never called back. But when they urgently needed money, she called immediately. Aside from the regular mortgage payments, they constantly had additional financial needs. Dad, our washing machine broke, Carmen called. The repairman said it's not worth fixing. Cheaper to buy a new one. A good one costs $400. Could you help? Dad, the car needs repairs. The gearbox is acting up. They're asking for $250. We don't have the money right now. Everything goes to the mortgage. Daddy, Isabella's birthday is coming up soon. We want to throw her a proper party at a kids' center, invite her friends from daycare. It costs $150. You want your granddaughter to have a good birthday, don't you? Each time I found the money, I borrowed from neighbors, took out consumer loans, sold things. I even had to sell the country house I inherited from my parents and had planned to leave to my daughter for $8,000. Thank you, Dad, Carmen said, receiving the next sum. We're so grateful to you. We'll definitely pay you back when Rodrigo gets his promotion. Rodrigo never did get that promotion, but their appetites kept growing. Don Vicente, my son-in-law, addressed me about 5 years after buying the apartment. I want to take advanced training courses, an MBA program at a prestigious business school. It's an investment in our future. After finishing, my salary will increase by at least 1.5 times. How much do these courses cost? $3,000. But it's education. Investments in knowledge always pay off. I gave him the money for the courses. Rodrigo successfully completed them, received a fancy diploma in a frame. His salary went up by $50. This is only the beginning, he explained. Career growth is a gradual process. It takes time to demonstrate new competencies. And then they decided Isabella needed well-rounded development. Dad, we enrolled Isabella in an early development school, Carmen told me. They have wonderful programs, English, mathematical logic, creative workshops, plus individual sessions with a speech therapist and psychologist. How much does it cost? $180 a month. But you understand how important it is to give a child a good education from an early age. Of course I understood, so I found another $180 a month. Then came dance classes, $100 a month, swimming, $50, and art studio, $70. Isabella is so talented, Carmen gushed. Her dance teacher says she has natural ability, and at the art studio, her drawings are always displayed on the best workboard. I was glad my granddaughter was developing, but my salary no longer covered all the expenses. I had to take out loans. By the 5th year of this story, I already owed banks $4,000. I lived modestly, cut back on vacations and entertainment, forgot about expensive purchases. My engineer's salary plus consulting work kept me afloat, but I had no savings. And they had new needs. Dad, we need to replace the car, Carmen announced. Ours is old, constantly breaking down, and with a child, we need a reliable car. Their old car was a 5-year-old Toyota Camry, which they had bought on credit a year after their wedding, a credit I had also helped pay off. And what are you planning to replace it with? We've picked out a Lexus, practically new in excellent condition. How much does it cost? $15,000, but we found a good auto loan program. I refused. For the first time in all those years, I said a firm no. Dad, what? Carmen was surprised. It's for Isabella's safety. You already have a car, reliable, in good condition. That's enough. But it's not modern anymore. It doesn't have the newest safety systems. You've been driving it for 5 years and nothing happened? Carmen was offended. She didn't call me for a week, and when she finally did, her voice was cold. Fine, Dad. If you think your granddaughter doesn't deserve a safe car, we'll just keep driving the old one. That was the first crack in our relationship. After the car incident, something changed in how they treated me. Carmen called me even less, and only about practical matters. Warm conversations about life, work, and plans ceased altogether. Hi, Dad. How are you? She would ask mechanically. Fine, working. And you? Also fine. Listen, you didn't forget about the payment, did you? I checked at the bank. There seemed to be a small delay. I didn't forget. I'll transfer it tomorrow. Good. Well, I'll go now. Busy. Short beeps. Invitations to visit came less and less. And when I offered to come myself, there were always reasons for refusal. Dad, this week we're renovating Isabella's room. Dust and mess everywhere. Not a good time for guests. And next weekend? We'll see. Rodrigo has a corporate event. Maybe we'll go as a family. How's little Isabella? I miss her. Fine, growing. She doesn't have much free time, lots of activities. English, dance, drawing. Her schedule's full. I started seeing my granddaughter only in passing. Chance encounters in the park, where she walked with her nanny, or once bumping into them at the supermarket. Grandpa, Isabella cried joyfully when she saw me. Why don't you come to our house? Busy, sunshine. Working a lot. I made you a new drawing. A princess in a pretty dress. You'll show me when we see each other? Mom, Grandpa wants to see my drawing. You'll show him next time, Carmen replied without looking at me. We have to go. We've got things to do. And they walked away, while I stood in the middle of the supermarket watching them leave. 2 years ago, the situation became critical. My visits to them stopped altogether. Carmencita, maybe I'll come by on Sunday, I called. Dad, we're going through a really tough period right now. Rodrigo is defending a big project. He's terribly nervous. Better not for now. When will it be possible? I don't know, later sometime. I'll call you. Later never came. I tried to find out what was happening. Daughter, I feel like we've grown distant. What's going on? Nothing, Dad. It's just that we're adults now. We have our own lives. That's normal. But I'm your father, and Isabella's grandfather. No one denies that. But it's not necessary to see each other every week. We call, we congratulate each other on holidays. That's enough. When was the last time we even saw each other at a holiday? I don't remember. Well, we met at New Year's. That was a year and a half ago. I came for 2 hours, brought gifts, and left, feeling like I was in the way. Carmen, tell me directly, did I do something wrong? She stayed silent for a long time, then sighed. Dad, you just don't really fit into our life. We have a different circle of friends, different interests, a different pace of life. Rodrigo says that when you come over, the atmosphere gets tense. What do I do wrong? Not wrong exactly, but you always make remarks. The music is too loud. The food isn't right. We're raising Isabella the wrong way. The child senses it and gets nervous. I was stunned. When had I ever criticized their lifestyle? I had always tried to be tactful, delicate. Carmen, I never allowed myself. Not with words, Dad. With looks, with tone. You look at our purchases as if we're spendthrifts. You frown when we tell you about vacations or entertainment. You make remarks about Isabella's activities. I worry about your spending because I help cover it. There, you think you have the right to control us just because you give us money. I don't control. I just ask. Dad, let's not fight. You're a good man, a good father. But we have different views on life. Let's just live our own lives and not interfere with each other. After that conversation, more than 6 months of silence passed. The auto payment kept withdrawing $200 each month, but we didn't speak. And then came that fateful call about Isabella's birthday. After that conversation, I didn't sleep until dawn. I sat in the kitchen, drank tea, smoked cigarette after cigarette, though I had quit 5 years earlier, and tried to understand what had happened to my life. Where had I gone wrong? What mistake had I made? All my life I had tried to be a good father. After divorcing Elena, I worked myself to exhaustion so my daughter lacked nothing. I never spared money for her education, development, wishes. When she asked for help with the mortgage, I agreed without hesitation. For 10 years, I gave away a third of my income for their comfortable life. For 10 years, I deprived myself of everything, just so they would have everything. And what did I get in return? A daughter who thinks I ruin the atmosphere? A son-in-law who tolerates my visits out of politeness? A granddaughter I'm not allowed to see? You don't fit into our life, Carmen said, into a life I was financing half of. By morning, I had made my decision. First thing, I called the bank and canceled the auto payment. Don Vicente, are you sure you want to disable the regular mortgage payment in the name of Carmen Moreno? The bank employee clarified. Absolutely sure. May I ask the reason? Perhaps you're facing temporary financial difficulties and we could offer you a solution? No, this is my final decision. Please disable the auto payment. Very well, the auto payment is disabled as of today. The last withdrawal was made on the 25th of this month. The next automatic payment will not be processed. I hung up and, for the first time in many years, felt something like relief, as if a heavy backpack had slipped from my shoulders. Then I went to the store and bought groceries. Good ones, expensive ones, tasty ones, fresh salmon, fine cheese, good meat, exotic fruits. I hadn't treated myself like that in a long time. In the evening, I made dinner as if for guests, opened a bottle of wine I had been saving for years, turned up the music louder. In my own apartment, I had the right. The $200 left in my account gave me a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. Isabella's birthday came a week later. I thought of her all day, imagined her blowing out the candles on the cake, enjoying her gifts, laughing with friends. The Princess Castle building set I had bought still lay in the closet, ungifted. It hurt to think my granddaughter might be waiting for me and not understanding why her grandpa wasn't at her party. But the choice hadn't been mine. A few days after the birthday, Carmen should have received notice of the overdue mortgage payment, but she didn't call. Another week passed. Silence. Maybe they had made the payment themselves, or maybe there really was a bank error. I checked my account statement. No withdrawal. Or maybe Carmen thought it was just a technical glitch and was waiting for it to fix itself? I kept living my ordinary life. Went to work, met with friends, even started going to the gym. For the first time in years, I had spare money for a membership. Vicente, you seem happier lately, my colleague Sergio noticed. Your face looks fresher, your posture straighter. Fell in love, maybe? No, just that life's gotten a bit better. What do you mean? Oh, just some problems got solved. Indeed, I felt better than I had in years, as if I had been freed from under a pile of rubble. I met my neighbor Gabriela, an intelligent 55-year-old widow. We began occasionally sharing tea in the kitchen, talking about books, movies, life. Don Vicente, she said one day, you've become a completely different person this past month. Before you were always so serious, so worried about problems. And now you smile, you joke. Some problems just went away on their own. It's good when that happens. A month passed since I canceled the auto payment. Carmen still hadn't called. A month and a half passed. I had already begun to think they might have somehow solved their financial problems on their own. And then the phone rang. Don Vicente, this is Ana from the bank, the problem debt department. I'm listening. We have some questions regarding the mortgage under the name of Carmen Moreno. According to our records, you used to make regular payments on this loan? Yes, I helped my daughter. I see. The problem is that no payments have been made for a month and a half. There's now an overdue balance of $1,500, including penalties and late fees. And we contacted the borrower. Senora Moreno claims that a technical error occurred on your end. She says you didn't cancel the auto payment intentionally and that the money should still be withdrawn automatically. I chuckled. That's no error. I intentionally canceled the auto payment a month and a half ago. May I ask for what reason? Personal? I understand. Do you plan to resume the payments in the future? No. Don Vicente, I am required to warn you, if the debt isn't settled within 3 months, the bank has the right to take the matter to court for the forced repossession of the mortgage property. I'm not the borrower or guarantor of this loan. That's Senora Moreno's problem. Understood. Thank you for clarifying. After that conversation, I realized the game had begun in earnest. Carmen knew the auto payment hadn't been canceled by mistake. She knew I no longer intended to pay for their apartment, but for some reason, she still hadn't called me. Maybe they were trying to solve the problem on their own, took out a loan to cover the arrears, or simply didn't believe I was capable of such a move. I waited and kept enjoying my freedom. In the following weeks, the real pressure began. They came at me from all sides, trying to force me back into the old arrangement. The first to call was Elena, my ex-wife. Vicente, what are you doing? Carmen called me in tears, telling me about your conflict. There's no conflict, Elena. I just stopped paying for their apartment. Stopped paying? They could lose their home. They have incomes. Let them take responsibility for themselves. Vicente, how can you say that? That's your daughter, your granddaughter. Who don't think it's necessary to invite me to family celebrations because I ruin the atmosphere? Oh, that's nonsense. Young people sometimes say foolish things. Is that really enough reason to abandon your family in a crisis? Elena, for 10 years, I gave them money, and in all that time, not once did they ask about my problems, my health, my plans. To them, I'm just a source of cash. Don't say that. Carmen loves you. She loves my wallet. Vicente, I'm asking you as Carmen's mother, help them. They're young, inexperienced. They'll learn to be grateful. 10 years wasn't enough. I doubt they ever will. Then Rodrigo's parents called. Don Vicente, we heard about your conflict with the kids, but is it really worth endangering the well-being of the whole family over personal grievances? There are no grievances. I simply believe adults should support their own family. But you've helped for so many years, they relied on your support. They relied in vain. They should have worked harder. Don Vicente, our Rodrigo is a very promising young man, but building a career takes time. 10 years is enough time to build a career. Then some aunt of Carmen's, a distant relative, called. Vicente, what nonsense is this? Carmencita is crying, saying you're blackmailing them with money. I'm not blackmailing anyone. I just stopped sponsoring another family. What do you mean another family? She's your daughter. Who considers me unnecessary in her life? Oh, come on, are you sulking like a child? She didn't mean it that way. Even a coworker suddenly brought it up. Hey, Vicente, my wife read on social media. Your Carmencita says they're having mortgage problems. Is it true you stopped helping? What business is it of yours? Nothing, just seems strange. She's your daughter, after all. A daughter who took money for 10 years and never once said thank you. I realized the story had spread widely. Carmen was telling everyone she knew what a cruel, heartless father she had, who abandoned his family in a difficult moment over a petty grudge. But that no longer bothered me. Let them think what they want. Meanwhile, the bank wasn't sleeping. They called me every week, updating me on the growing debt. Don Vicente, the debt has already reached $3,200, including penalties and fees. Ana, now familiar, informed me. The borrower is trying to negotiate a restructuring, but the bank requires the overdue balance to be paid first. That's their problem. I must warn you, if the situation isn't resolved within a month, we will file in court. The foreclosure process can begin within 3 months. Understood. Clearly, Carmen and Rodrigo were trying to fix the problem themselves. Apparently, they were taking loans, selling belongings, borrowing from friends, but the debt was too large, and it kept growing every month. Meanwhile, I was building my new life. I bought a new TV, renovated my bathroom, updated my wardrobe, signed up for a theater group for seniors, started learning Italian. For the first time in many years, I felt I was living for myself. With Gabriella, we began seeing each other not only in the kitchen, but also going together to theaters, museums, exhibitions. A smart, educated woman with whom it was a pleasure to talk. Don Vicente, she said one evening over dinner, you've become a completely different man. When we first met, you seemed so tired, so worn down. And now, energetic, cheerful, full of plans. Life has changed for the better. What happened? I told her the whole story about my daughter and the mortgage. Gabriella listened attentively, without interrupting. You did the right thing, she said at the end. You can't spend your whole life sacrificing yourself for ungrateful people, even if they're family. And if they really do lose the apartment, they'll find another place, rent something cheaper, move to a different neighborhood, and maybe finally they'll learn the value of money and how to earn it. And if they don't, then that's their choice. You're not obligated to carry responsibility for grown adults for your whole life. Her words gave me confidence that I was on the right path. Almost 4 months had passed since I canceled the auto payment. I had already grown used to the thought that Carmen would never call, that she would rather lose the apartment than humble herself to ask her father for help. The bank, too, was ready to take extreme measures. Don Vicente, Ana called me one last time, tomorrow we're filing the documents in court for the forced repossession of the mortgage property. The debt is now $5,100. This really is the last day the matter can be settled peacefully. I understand. Thank you for the information. Are you absolutely sure you don't want to help the borrower? Absolutely. That evening I stood by the window for a long time, looking at the city lights. Somewhere out there, in one of the new neighborhoods, my daughter and granddaughter were preparing for the possibility that tomorrow their apartment could be sealed by the court. I felt sorry for little Isabella. A 5-year-old girl wasn't to blame for her parents being so selfish and ungrateful. But I couldn't sacrifice myself for life because of other people's mistakes. Other people's, I thought, then corrected myself. Not other people's, my daughters and granddaughters. But they had made the choice themselves, cutting me out of their lives. I went to bed with a clear conscience. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. I woke up instantly. Calls that early usually meant something urgent. On the screen, Carmen's name. My heart skipped, but I answered calmly. Hello. Dad. Her voice trembled. I could hear she had been crying. The bank called me. They said you really did cancel the auto payment, that it wasn't a technical glitch. Yes, not a glitch. Daddy. Her voice broke into tears she was trying to hold back. Today we'll get a summons from the court. They might take away our apartment. We've accumulated so much debt. We can't pay it off. I know. But how could you, Dad? Why didn't you tell us? We would have thought of something, found the money somewhere. 4 months and you didn't? We thought it was just a temporary system error. We hoped you had just forgotten to restart the payment after changing your bank card or something. I didn't forget. She burst into sobs over the phone. Dad, why are you punishing us like this? What terrible thing did we do? You said I ruined the atmosphere at my granddaughter's birthday party. But it was said in the heat of the moment. We were stressed, tired. Rodrigo had a crisis at work then. I was nervous. We didn't mean it that way. What did you mean? That we love you, of course. But sometimes you think we're living the wrong way, and you start making remarks. And sometimes we just want to celebrate in peace, without extra tension. What remarks did I make? Well, when we told you about the vacation in Cancun, you said it was expensive. When we bought Isabella educational toys, you said that in your time, children played with sticks and were happy. When we ordered food at a restaurant, Carmen, I interrupted her, I remember every single visit to your home in recent years. When did I ever criticize your spending or lifestyle? She fell silent. When was the last time you asked about my life, my health, my plans? Silence. When was the last time you invited me over just because? Not when you needed money. Dad, what does that have to do with this? She sobbed. We're adults now. We have our own lives. Your own lives? At my expense. We were going to pay you back. As soon as Rodrigo got his promotion, in 10 years, you've paid me back exactly $0, even though you promised to start repaying once you were on your feet. But we will. Sooner or later, we will. Carmen, answer me honestly. If it weren't for the threat of losing your apartment, would you have called me? A long silence. And if I hadn't helped you with the mortgage all these years, would you even be speaking to me now? An even longer silence. Daddy, she sobbed, please. We urgently need to pay $4,500, or tomorrow they'll come to inventory our belongings. We don't have that kind of money. We've tried everything. Took loans, borrowed from friends, asked Rodrigo's parents. $4,500. My savings from years of working as an engineer, plus side consultations, plus the country house I had sold. And what happens after that? Will I be back to paying $200 a month? No, we'll figure something out. Rodrigo's looking for a new job with a higher salary. I'll find extra work too. Maybe we'll sell the car. But right now we need emergency help or we'll be on the street with a child. I was silent, thinking it over. Come over, I said at last. Really? Daddy, thank you. I'm on my way right now. Come, but first we talk. Carmen arrived 40 minutes later. It was obvious she had rushed out. Old jeans, a stretched sweater, hair pinned up carelessly. Her face was swollen from crying, her eyes red. Dad! She threw herself at me, hugging me tighter than she had in many years. Thank you for agreeing to help. I knew you wouldn't abandon us. Sit down first. We'll talk, I said, gently freeing myself from her embrace. We went to the kitchen. I put the kettle on, set out some cookies. Now tell me in detail, how did things get this bad? Dad, you know. Carmen fidgeted with a napkin nervously. Prices are rising, salaries don't keep up. Isabella has so many needs. Development school, activities, clothes. And your job? Rodrigo's career? I'm stable for now, but no real growth prospects. And Rodrigo? She hesitated. What about Rodrigo? He was fired 4 months ago. I set my cup down on the table with a heavy thud. Fired? How? Optimization, layoffs. His whole department was dissolved. He's looking for a new place but hasn't found the right one yet. So for 4 months you've been supporting the family alone? Yes, but my salary isn't nearly enough for the mortgage, and then your payments stopped. We thought it was temporary, that everything would soon be back to normal. Now I saw the whole picture. It wasn't just about my money. They had a full financial collapse. Why didn't you tell me right away? 4 months ago when Rodrigo was fired? He forbade me. He was ashamed he couldn't keep his job. Said he'd quickly find another, and there was no need to upset you. So you decided just to deceive me? Hoped I wouldn't notice the missing payments? Carmen blushed. Not deceive. Just not bother you unnecessarily. We thought Rodrigo would find a job in a month or two, our income would recover, and you'd never even know about our temporary troubles. Carmen, I've been paying for your apartment for 10 years. Don't I have the right to know what's happening in the family I'm supporting? You're not helping us. You're keeping us, she blurted out, then covered her mouth with her hand in shock. Silence fell. Exactly, I said calmly. Keeping you. And as your provider, I have the right to know where my money goes. Dad, I didn't mean it like that. You said exactly what you think. And you know what? You're right. I really am keeping you. 1/3 of your apartment's cost is my money. Half of Isabella's extracurriculars and entertainment. My money, your vacations, restaurants, expensive clothes, all partly on my dime. We never asked you. You did. Constantly. The washing machine, the car repair, Isabella's birthday, Rodrigo's courses. Carmen lowered her head. We are grateful to you. I don't feel it. Dad, what do you want to hear? That we're bad people, selfish, ungrateful? Fine, maybe we are. Maybe we got used to your help and stopped appreciating it. But that's not the point right now. The point is, we could lose our home. And what happens if I pay these $4,500? Rodrigo will find a job? In 6 months? A year? Or maybe he'll decide there's no need to bother since he has a sponsor for a father-in-law. He's looking. He really is. It's just the job market is tough right now. An IT manager with a degree and experience looking for 4 months already? They either offer too little money or bad conditions. So he's being choosy? Well, basically, yes. Carmen, I looked her in the eye. Answer honestly. If not for the threat of losing the apartment, would you have called me? She was silent for a long time. When was the last time you asked about my life, my health, my plans for the future? Silence. When was the last time you invited me over without asking for money? Dad, what does that have to do with anything? She burst out. We're adults. We live our own lives. It's not necessary to call and visit every week. It's not necessary, but then I'm not obliged to help with money either. But I'm your daughter, a daughter who doesn't invite her father to her daughter's birthday party. Oh, how long are you going to hold that against us? She cried again. It was such a small thing. We just wanted a quiet family celebration. Without Grandpa. Well, yes, without Grandpa. And what's so terrible about that? Can one birthday really ruin a relationship? It's not about the birthday. It's about the fact that for you, I became unnecessary, only useful when money was needed. Carmen cried even harder. Fine, I'm guilty. I'm guilty of everything. We behaved badly, set our priorities wrong. But will you really let us end up on the street because of your resentment? Not out of resentment, out of principle. What principle? Adults must take responsibility for their own decisions. I got up and paced the kitchen, gathering my thoughts. I'll help you if you want, but only under certain conditions. Carmen lifted her tear-stained eyes. What conditions? First, the $4,500 is a loan, not a gift. You'll repay $100 a month. Term of repayment, 4 years. We'll put it in writing. $100 a month, she gasped, but we're already barely scraping by. That's the first condition. The second, weekly visits with Isabella, every Saturday from 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening, either at your place or mine. Every Saturday, but that's the third condition, complete financial transparency. Any expenses over $50 must be agreed with me in advance. No new loans without my knowledge. Dad, that's humiliating. We're adults. Adults who are asking me for nearly $5,000. The fourth condition, apologies to Isabella, in front of me, for the fact that Grandpa didn't come for so long because of your decision. But she's too little. She won't understand all that. She'll understand enough. The fifth condition, Rodrigo takes any job within a month. If he doesn't, you find cheaper housing and move out. But he's a high-level specialist. He can't just work anywhere. He can and he must. When you have a family and a mortgage, you work wherever necessary to support them. Carmen sat silently, digesting my conditions. And if we don't agree to your demands, then I wish you good luck finding $4,500 by evening. Banks close at 6 today. That's blackmail, number. That's a contract. You can accept the terms or refuse. And if Rodrigo says he won't live under your control, then let him provide for his family without my help. She covered her face with her hands. God, everything's gotten so complicated. Carmen, I'm not your enemy. I'm just tired of being a milk cow you come to only for money. I want to be a father and a grandfather, not a silent sponsor. But you could have talked, explained. Why such drastic measures? I tried to talk 2 years ago. You said we had different views on life and suggested we live separately. I didn't mean it that way. You meant exactly that, and you got what you wanted. Carmen lifted her head. And what if I agree to your conditions, but Rodrigo is against it? That's your family problem. Work it out yourselves. I need to talk to him. You've got a little time. Banks close this evening, and then you won't be able to pay. Carmen stood up, wiped her tears. I'll go talk to Rodrigo. I'll call you in an hour. I'll be waiting. She walked to the door, stopped. Dad, are you really willing to help, or do you just want to teach us a lesson? I'm willing to help, but only on these terms and no other. And what if in 6 months we ask for another loan? On the same terms, a loan under a signed agreement with mandatory repayment. Carmen didn't call in an hour, didn't call in an hour and a half. I began to think they had decided to reject my terms and look for money elsewhere. Finally, at 1:30, the phone rang. Dad, we agree. To all the conditions? Yes, all of them. At first, Rodrigo was outraged, said it was humiliating, but then he realized we had no choice. Either your rules or we lose the apartment. Good, we'll meet at the bank at 2:30. I'll be there. Dad, thank you. I know you have every right to be angry with us. We were wrong. We'll see how well you keep your promises. We will. I promise. At the bank, everything went quickly and businesslike. I deposited $4,500 in cash. I had to withdraw it from several savings accounts in advance. Carmen signed a written agreement for the loan with a commitment to repay $100 each month over 45 months. That's it, I said, putting the note into my wallet. Now let's go see my granddaughter. Dad, maybe tomorrow would be better? Carmen worried. We didn't warn Isabella. She might be confused. No, today, according to our agreement. All right, just please don't talk to her about the conditions or the loan. Children shouldn't know about adult financial problems. I won't, but I do want to hear the apology. In the car on the way to their home, Carmen was nervous. Dad, do you think Isabella will remember you? We haven't seen you in such a long time. We'll see. And what if she's shy at first? That's fine. Children get used to things quickly. And you won't be too strict with her, will you? She's used to a certain routine. Carmen, I'm her grandfather, not some stranger. I know how to be with children. She sighed. Sorry, I'm just nervous. I understand. The apartment greeted me with coolness and silence. Rodrigo was sitting on the couch in the living room, playing a board game with Isabella. When he saw me, he stood up and extended his hand. Don Vicente, thank you for your help. We really appreciate it. Grandpa, Isabella jumped up and ran to me. Grandpa's here! My heart squeezed with tenderness. She had grown taller, her hair now reached her waist, but her eyes were the same, big, brown, and intelligent. Isabelita, my sunshine. I lifted her into my arms. How you've grown. You're such a big girl now. And I remember you, she announced proudly. You used to read me stories and bring me candy. And I'll bring some again. You will? Of course. Next time. When's next time? From now on, I'll come every Saturday. Really? Her eyes lit up with joy. Every Saturday, and will Mom let you? Carmen cleared her throat. Isabella, your dad and I want to tell you something. What? We want to apologize to Grandpa for not inviting him for such a long time. Why didn't you invite him? Carmen hesitated and looked at me. We were very busy with work, I explained. But that was wrong. Families should see each other more often. And now you'll see each other? Now Grandpa will come to visit you every Saturday, or you'll come to me. Hooray! Isabella clapped her hands. And what will we do? Play, read books, go for walks. Whatever you want. Can I show you my room? I have so many new toys. Of course, show me. We spent 2 hours in her room. Isabella showed me every doll, every toy car, telling me their stories. We built a castle from blocks, drew a princess, and read a new book. Grandpa, why do you have wrinkles? She asked, studying my face. Because I've gotten older. Will you get even older? Yes, but not soon. And when you get really old, will you die? Not soon, Isabelita. I'll still be here to play with you and read you stories for a long time. Okay, and can we do something new every Saturday? Of course, we'll go to theaters, museums, parks. I'll teach you lots of things. Like what? Like chess, for example, or drawing. And cooking. Cooking too. Great. She clapped her hands again. Mom, did you hear? Grandpa's going to teach me how to cook. Rodrigo and Carmen watched us from the living room. In their eyes, I could read a mix of relief and worry. The money was received, the apartment saved, but now they had to live by new rules. Don Vicente, Rodrigo said when we came back to the living room, thank you again. We understand we behaved wrongly. We'll try to do better. We'll see, I replied. The important thing is to remember our agreements. Of course, I'm already starting tomorrow to actively look for a job, any suitable job. And every Saturday, Isabella will be waiting for Grandpa, Carmen added. Yes, Isabella confirmed. 8 months passed since that memorable day. Much had changed in our family. Rodrigo really did find a job within 2 weeks. Not as prestigious or well-paid as he wanted, but still a job. A sales manager at a small IT company. The salary was about a third less than before, but it was income. Don Vicente, he told me a month into the job, I realized something important. When you have a family and responsibilities, you need to take any acceptable job instead of waiting for the perfect offer. That's the right understanding, I agreed. I used to think too highly of myself. Thought I deserved only top positions with high salaries. And in the end, I spent 4 months unemployed and nearly destroyed my family. The main thing is to learn the right lessons. I have. Now I'll appreciate what I have and not get carried away. Carmen diligently transfers me $100 on the 25th of each month. She hasn't been late once, hasn't asked for a delay once. Apparently she understood that an agreement is an agreement. Dad, she told me recently, you know, in a way, these $100 a month are actually useful. We've learned to plan our budget, to save on things we don't need. Before we spent carelessly, but now we think through every purchase. That's good. And Rodrigo has changed too. He's become more responsible, I think. Before he thought the world owed him something. Now he understands you have to earn everything yourself. Every Saturday I either go to their place or take Isabella with me. We go to theaters, museums, parks, the zoo. We read books, draw, sculpt, and play board games. I teach her chess and how to cook simple meals. Grandpa, why do birds fly and we don't? She asked me on one of our walks. Because birds have wings and people don't. Can we make wings? People made airplanes. They're like artificial wings. Can I fly on a plane? Of course, when you grow up, we'll take a trip together. Where to? Wherever you want. To Italy, for example. Isabella blossomed from our constant time together. She became more open, curious, and confident. She tells me all her secrets, shares her plans and dreams. Grandpa, she says while playing with a new doll, do you know what I want to be? What? A doctor. I'll help sick people and animals. That's a very good profession. And will you help me study? Of course I will, sweetheart. And if I want to be a teacher, I'll help with that too. And an astronaut? That too, she laughs. Grandpas can't help you become an astronaut. Good grandpas can do anything. Carmen and Rodrigo got used to the new order. At first it wasn't easy. They consulted me on every major purchase. But gradually they realized I wasn't a tyrant or a control freak. I simply wanted to know how the money I was helping them with was being spent. When Isabella needed new winter clothes for $150, I said, of course, buy them. A child should be dressed warmly. When Carmen needed a new laptop for work for $250, I didn't object either. But when they wanted to take out a loan for a $1,000 vacation, I explained, first pay off what you owe me, and then think about vacations abroad. But we so badly want to relax as a family, Carmen protested. Then relax at Rodrigo's parents' country house, or go to the seaside in the neighboring province. It's cheaper and just as good for you. They grumbled but didn't take the loan. Gradually, our relationship began to improve. Carmen started calling not only about business, but just to talk. She tells me about her job, her colleagues, her plans. She asks for advice on raising Isabella. She shows interest in my own life. Dad, how are things with Gabriella? She asked me recently on the phone. Good, we see each other, go to the theater. And do you like her? She's a very pleasant woman. Maybe you'll introduce us. Isabella keeps asking about Grandpa's lady. Sure, I'll bring her with me next Saturday. Great. And she doesn't mind that you already have a family? On the contrary, she's happy. She says a man without family is incomplete. Even Rodrigo became easier to talk to. He stopped making condescending remarks, stopped looking at me as if I were a nuisance. On the contrary, he asked for advice, requests my help with the computer or with documents. Don Vicente, he said to me the other day, I want to apologize again for my behavior. We really did act like selfish people. The past is the past, I replied. The main thing is to learn the right lessons. We are, and I also want to say, Isabella loves you very much. To her, you're not just a grandpa, you're her best friend. I love her too. It shows. When she talks about your Saturday adventures, her eyes shine with happiness. And I also found a new life. Gabriella turned out to be a wonderful woman, intelligent, kind, with a great sense of humor. We often spend evenings together, go to theaters and exhibitions, travel on weekends. Don Vicente, she told me once, do you know what happened to me? What? I started to feel like a woman again, not just an elderly neighbor. Thank you. I should be the one thanking you, I replied. For what? For helping me come back to life. Today marks exactly 1 year since Carmen called me and said I was ruining the atmosphere at my granddaughter's birthday. 1 year since I made perhaps the most important decision of my life. Sometimes I think back to that day and ask myself, did I do the right thing? Was I too harsh in reacting to my daughter's words? And every time I come to the same conclusion, I did the right thing. Yes, I lost the illusion of unconditional filial love, but in exchange I gained honest relationships built on mutual respect, not financial dependence. Yes, I lost the role of silent sponsor, but I gained the place of a true father and grandfather. Yes, I risked losing my family, but in the end I saved it, because relationships built only on money would have collapsed sooner or later anyway. Isabelita is growing up healthy and happy. Her parents have learned to appreciate help and to take responsibility for their decisions. And I, for the first time in many years, have felt like not a milk cow, but a full member of the family. Grandpa, Isabella told me yesterday as we were building a snowman in the yard, do you know that you're the best grandpa in the world? How do you know that? I smiled. Because you always come when you promise, and you always think of fun games, and you never get angry. Do other grandpas get angry? I don't know, I only have one grandpa, you. My heart swelled with tenderness. Yes, she has only one grandpa, and I'll do everything to be worthy of that title. Next Saturday, Isabella and I will celebrate 1 year of our weekly meetings. I'm planning to throw a little party, buy a cake, bring gifts, invite Gabriella. Let my granddaughter know that Grandpa remembers important dates and knows how to celebrate them. And in the evening, after Isabella falls asleep, Carmen, Rodrigo, and I will sit in the kitchen with tea and talk about the future, about how to continue building our family relationships, about plans, dreams, and hopes. Because family isn't just shared blood and a last name. It's responsibility for each other, the readiness to help and support, the ability to forgive mistakes and give second chances. But it's also boundaries, rules, and mutual respect. A year ago, I had to set firm boundaries so that they wouldn't have to be set once and for all. And you know what? I don't regret a thing.